I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, May 14th. Mike, can you take a roll?
Monday. Finkler.
Here.
Albright.
Present.
Myers.
Here.
Stapleton.
Here.
Petrowski.
Here. We have a quorum. I assume the meeting was posted according to state.
It was posted according to law.
I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
We have a first from Finkler and a second from Nate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion carries. Look for a motion to approve the minutes from
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
we have a first from Finkler and a second from Albright. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion carries. Regular business, public comment.
Doesn't look like there's public comment.
No public comments. Second on the agenda is election of officers, chair, vice chair, and secretary. How do we go about this, Mike? Look for nominations and then,
Nominations for each seat, and we'll take,
I'd like to make a motion that we don't change it and leave it as it is. No second? Okay.
any other discussion?
I don't have any.
All in favor?
Did you have to, okay, sorry. He turned his light on, so I was just wondering.
Aye.
Aye.
All against? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
and maybe for the audience out there, maybe we state who, oops. Perhaps for the audience out there, we could state who the chair, vice chair, and secretary is, because not everyone might know who that is, because it was just a motion to not change.
The chair is Uriah Monday. Vice chair is Mike Myers. And secretary is Molly Finkler.
Okay.
What are we looking at?
Next item.
All right. Number 3, consider and take action regarding the rewriting of zoning code related to signs and developer stakeholders' feedback.
Do you want to start with signs or?
Science.
Okay. Hello again. So a few things on the agenda tonight related to the zoning code rewrite. We're going to take a piece for the sign code and historic preservation, but I guess the agenda item here wrapped together the sign code and then an update on our focus group. So we'll get to that in order. Signs, focus groups, historic preservation. There are different PowerPoints for each. So just starting with the sign content, slides to help us go through things. There are individual slides with questions on policies. I'll just explain what else is in the packet. There's the sign code draft itself, so that's all of the language that would potentially be included in the code with definitions, how to deal with measuring signs, how to deal with non-conforming signs. There are tables that we'll refer to, really the meat of the sign code itself as, for example, the staff administrator or maybe a sign company are these tables. And you can print them out, 11 by 17 sometimes works really well to have bigger text and, look for the sign type that you're looking for, and that's your one-stop shop for most of the information that you need as a sign code customer. And then also in your packet was this little one-pager, just because there's, again, so much information that this just helps to focus on some issues that we can work through a little bit easier if need be. So you can go back up to number 1 or 2, or 3, I guess. So where the sign code falls within the overall organization, we're chipping away little by little at part 2. We had that big conversation on part 1. Signage is an entire article in part 2, article 9. Go ahead. So the goals of the new code overall is a major restructuring really from what you have today in response to a Supreme Court case from 2015, Reed versus Gilbert. Some of you might be familiar with it. A lot of planning and zoning staff across the state have dealt with it or have completely rewritten their codes to address this, but it requires that all signage regulations be content neutral. And the easy way to describe it is if you have to read the sign to be able to determine how to regulate it, it's not a valid regulation. So if you're looking at it and I determine that's a church message, that is an illegal regulation. Other less obvious examples might be you're looking at signs in someone's yard and it's selling the home. I'm reading the message of that sign and determining that the home is for sale. It's a real estate sign, and you choose to regulate it one way versus a similar yard sign that might be a campaign sign. So it must be content neutral, and therefore what you have here compared to your existing code is a complete reorganization with different names that are content neutral. Like a lot of the rest of the Columbus zoning code, there's just ambiguity, conflicting standards, so cleaning things up, modernizing sign types, having categories for things like sandwich board signs, which downtown businesses use, and creating tables like we're doing throughout the rest of the code. Another just common, I guess, theme that we ran into is we noticed a lot of the sign types in your code today allow much bigger signs than we would otherwise expect to see. So I think a projecting sign, for example, in the downtown today could be 10 by 10 or 100 square feet, which is a pretty large projecting sign coming off of the face of a downtown building into the right-of-way, which often is starting at that building face. So that's pretty ginormous. And then also a roof sign being 300 square feet allowance. Most communities prohibit roof signs altogether. That's what this draft actually recommends as well. So just a couple of examples there. You can go ahead. Draft over. The new code as drafted prohibits roof signs. Yeah. So Reed versus Gilbert, I'll walk through that a little bit more. And then we'll cover kind of an orientation of how the code's organized and then go through some policy questions. So a little bit more on Reed versus Gilbert. You can keep going. 2015, I mentioned the Supreme Court case, must be content neutral. It was actually based on temporary yard signs that a church was using and putting around town because their location of services changed every week. And the sign regulator person in that community said that they couldn't do it because it wasn't allowed for churches. So that was the basis of the code. And like I said, if you must read the sign to know how to regulate it, it's not content neutral. So what can we regulate? Time, manner, place. Time is the duration of the sign being posted. So some signs, for example, you can say no more than 30 days. The manner would be things like material, the height, like how tall is it, or, is this made out of vinyl or more permanent material? And then place would be things like where geographically in a zoning district, and specifically on a site, something like setbacks. Kind of grouping those into content neutral sign categories. For example, permanent business signs, the things that you would most often get a sign permit request for, falls into a freestanding category that covers, just moving across the line, things like a monument, which has a solid base. That's the photo up there. Dual post has two posts, but no solid base. And then a pylon sign is typically your taller one. Throughout the code too, we have photo examples of all of the types of signs. On building categories, your wall, awning, canopy. So all of those things fall into that first line, permanent business signs. And then we have a category for temporary. So things like window signs that are typically affixed inside. Maybe they have a sale, or they're changing it out more regularly. Board and banner, like a vinyl banner. Flag is an actual flag. Feather is more those sort of rigid posts with the feather sign that are typically taller. Development signs are for an active plat, like subdivision of such and such coming soon. And then miscellaneous signs, things like yard signs, et cetera. I'll kind of orient you to the tables here. Yeah, so overall, kind of sign types on the far left, and then each of the different type of regulations moving across. You can go to the next page. It compartmentalizes things. Sign categories on the left with the arrow, and then images of those highlighted on the far right side. This section is the actual regulation, so like how many per lot, or one per drive-through. You can go ahead. And then the next box is where. So those are all the zoning districts. They're grouped by residential, commercial, and downtown. So the rules change depending on what district you're in. And then the footnotes, which are important, clarifying regulations that might apply to multiple different sign types. Aside from those big tables, there are these other key parts of the text of the code. So we have definitions. There are more robust descriptions of certain types of signs that have special rules, like electronic message signs, deal with brightness or the frequency of the message being changed. New graphics and illustrations to describe how to measure a sign. Do you do a full rectangle? Do you do around the individual letters? A full list of the prohibited signs. So here, off-premise. So a sign advertising something not located on the property. Abandoned signs. Animated or flashing signs, inflatable. Pylon is a question. I think we're actually allowing that. Roof is prohibited. Signs on vehicles, so parking a semi-truck with business sign in the parking lot counts as a sign. And then how to deal with maintenance, non-conforming signs, and violations are also listed here. So we've consolidated the sign types, like I mentioned. A lot of times the number of signs per site, we weren't changing things like that. Increased user friendliness with tables. I think we've talked about a lot of this. Expedited approval time. I think what you'll find in the draft is that most sign types are going to staff for approval. Some communities choose to have like the bigger things, pylon, monument signs coming to the Plan Commission for review. But I think the consistent message that I'm hearing from a lot of communities and staff is, well, if it complies with the code, what's the point of coming forward? Unless there's some sort of discretionary part, it may be in design review or something to add, then it just really makes sense to keep that at the staff level. Now going through a few policy questions and comments and discussion welcome as we go through these, but this one dealing with freestanding signs, just to describe how we're moving from existing to proposed. Right now, the code uses a conditional use permit to allow for additional freestanding signs. We're removing that, just like thematically throughout this whole process, we're trying to remove the CUPs and just make it clear whether it's permitted or prohibited. The height setback of the sign, rather than using a complex formula, that is just, equal to the sign height. So if you have a 10-foot tall sign, then it must be set back 10 feet. So just trying to simplify. And then we use like a formula here that you'll see through a lot of the sign types. 1 square foot of sign area per 1 linear foot of street frontage. So if you have 100 feet of street frontage, you can have a 100 square foot sign. We use a similar formula in the downtown to, using the face of a building facade, just to make it simple.
And I think currently it's 2 feet for every foot of frontage, I think, right?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's a lot.
So, yeah, any concerns, feel free to jump in or questions. This one is specific to downtown signs. Right now you use a sign overlay. So instead of doing that, the proposed approach is to have it very specific to the DMU, which is your downtown mixed use or your downtown zoning district. That zoning district will have the same standards for all signs, so you don't have to figure out what the base is and then how an overlay changes the base. It's just simple DMU sign standards. Here are some of those large sign types that I mentioned. 500 square feet of wall sign would be quite large. Just simplifying that, 1 square foot per foot of linear frontage. Mike did go around town and look at some examples, and there, Oddfellows, for example, was maybe a narrower store facade, maybe 30 feet. And the sign was exceeding that 30 square foot limit. So rightfully, I think, that's a concern. Are we limiting signage too much? But there's a footnote and a key thing in here that every business would be guaranteed at least 50 square foot of signage. So in situations like those narrower downtown parcels, that accommodates that. Okay, go ahead. Highway interchange overlay, this is something we'd like your feedback on. You could probably describe better how it works today, but I believe all the hatched, it goes quite far past the highway. It covers a lot of parcels that are a little bit deeper, probably not even visible from the highway. So the idea is to use a linear buffer rather than parcel specific. So on the proposed side, we would say go 1,500 feet from the center line of 151. And that's the area, because it's operating as an overlay. So any portion of a parcel that touches that 1,500-foot buffer would be able to have a taller sign, purpose being more visible from the highway. And what's the height that we had proposed here? I think we kept 35 feet.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but I think the main thing was the buffer from the center line. That's what I'm used to seeing in overlays. You do it based on the center line of the highway, and not based on parcel. And Sonia's exactly right. You're going on Highway 60. I mean, Roberts Manufacturing is not a highway commercial oriented building. And we really only have one really tall sign, and that's the BP Arby's sign. And, but 1,500 would take you to, I think, Industrial Drive. And to the west, it would take you to Highway 60, which is still a lot. So anyone in Columbus Commerce Center over by Napa, anyone in there would be able to have a taller sign. And then also, let's see, Industrial Drive, the west end of Commercial Drive, would fall in that as well. And then if you look at Highway 73 and 151, essentially you're looking at, I think, maybe to Heritage or just after Heritage. So the hospital wouldn't have a big pylon sign, but properties west of where the hospital driveway, somewhere in there is 1,500 feet. So that gives you a sense of what 1,500 feet is, but that's still, I think, generous.
So those are the questions to this committee. Keep the proposed approach, remove proposed approach,
Yeah.
or modify the approach.
Yep, any feedback, just setting it up as a question to guide feedback, yep.
I have a few questions.
Yeah,
This isn't related to billboards off 151, right? That's DOT. This is just business signs.
right, so any state regulatory location signs like exits or, those food signs, gas station are not regulated
Yeah.
by this.
We have a bunch of billboards along 151, I say, so that would, this.
Oh, and those are
would-
DOT right away, yeah.
Those are prohibited, in this draft.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I figured.
Billboards are?
Off-premise signs, yeah. And those would be
So
considered,
all those would have to be removed?
nope, they'd go on as non-conforming signs.
Basically, just no one can add any more of them.
And you can't add new ones, yeah.
Sure.
What's the max size of 500 square feet? Is that pretty typical nowadays? Or other municipalities limited into that size?
I think for a larger sign in that location.
What about, and I think I know the answer to this, when you see various little non-local businesses or whatever, just sticking signs in medians at ends of freeway exits where they, I would think,
Those are
don't belong.
typically illegal, because they're in city right-of-way. So those are typically illegal in the current ordinance and in the current draft.
Good. Are those, does law enforcement ever pick them up and do they just remove them, or do you know if we ever prosecute for those?
We probably don't prosecute for those. That's something probably on the enforcement side we need to get more focused on, whose responsibility that is. I think that has changed over the years, depending on, we've had some organizational changes and stuff like that. But we probably need to focus a little bit more on that.
And then, the other question I had as we went through this, and forgive me if maybe we're getting to it, is temporary signs that people might place in their yard. I understand we're not legislating based on what the content is, but I'm thinking political signs, yard sale signs. How are those being handled?
Yep, we do have a slide on that. I think that's a really key decision.
They're coming next.
That's coming, okay.
Yeah. I do actually have a comment. So two things I want to talk about. So the Oddfellow sign, you said that it's bigger than what it should be. So in this scenario, if this ordinance is passed, the Oddfellows will be able to keep their sign, and they can get some kind of exception? They get, they don't have
It would
to.
meet the ordinance,
It-
because there's a minimum 50 or 60.
Okay, so it would
square
meet,
foot.
it would meet the ordinance. Okay, so then I misunderstood what you were trying to say. And then my next comment is, so when we were talking about neutral signs and getting back to the religious, a religious comment. So are you saying that, like, a Catholic church or a Methodist church or whatever, if they wanted to put up a Christmas sign, a billboard based on Christmas, that would be inappropriate?
No, it's just if they are going to put up any type of sign, we have to look at it as the sign type and whether that's allowed in the zoning district and where it's located, but we have no say over whether, because it's Christmas,
Yep.
you can or can't have it, or because it's associated with a holiday, the timing. So, an example would be a church might be able to have one freestanding sign, and it's not because it's a church, but because it's on a property zoned institutional. So an institutional property can have one monument sign. We don't get to say what's on it, but we can say maybe it's 8 feet tall, it's set back 8 feet from the property line. You also get one wall sign. The institutional property could have a wall sign. We don't get to decide what it says, but it can be 50 square feet.
So I'm specifically asking about, like, billboards, because I know I've seen different churches, they put different stuff up for different holidays, whether it's Christian or otherwise. And so when you say the sign needs to be neutral, can you be more specific as to what you
does a
mean?
billboard mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah, what's a billboard mean to you? What is a
I don't know.
billboard?
I don't really, when I'm driving and I see one, yes, I read them. Do they affect me? Probably not, but I do think that, some people might want to see those kind of billboards. I know that I've seen a lot of them up north, and they're, and I just want to.
trying to figure out if you mean the billboards literally on the side of the highway, or do you consider a sign in town a billboard? Like size-wise? Because we can only control the material. We can't say, like, where you're getting at with content, we have no say in that. We can only
Yeah.
say the
Okay, so
sign.
then what does neutral mean? Well, I guess.
Neutral
So like
means-
like an example would mean like in old code and probably our current code, like there'd be a section on political signs.
Uh-huh.
You can't regulate political signs.
Right, 'cause
You can
it's freedom of
say yard
speech.
signs.
Right, yep,
Or
yep.
pylon signs. You can say that kind of stuff. So that would be content neutral. Or let's say, I don't know, what's another example of, political is probably the most common one that's religion or
I
whatever.
think any special interest, we're not,
The-
as a city, we don't want to write building codes that say you can't put up a sign.
That's
because of
exactly
this
my
topic.
point, that's where I'm trying to get to.
we're
So when you're saying
avoiding-
neutral, you're not necessarily saying that if I was part of the Catholic Church and I wanted to put a
Oh,
sign up.
no, I see where you're going. Yeah, no, not that.
I would be upset if I wasn't allowed to put up, a sign based on my religion if I'm.
That's the whole point of this, is to not regulate speech.
Yeah.
Okay. All
This
right.
is a freedom of speech thing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I got confused because I know about this case, obviously, because this is important, but I was confused by the terminology that we're using, so I wanted to clarify that we aren't, that we're not gonna be stepping on anybody's toes, and that if they wanna, say something that they
So,
can.
well, here.
Yeah, the
here-
code needs to be neutral. The sign doesn't need to be neutral.
Yeah, so like an example here, let's say, I'm just, there's a lot of code in here, so I'm just like, let's say in a residential zoning district, it says you can have a 5 foot by 5 foot yards, I'm just making this up. 5 foot by 5 foot yard sign. And if someone has one and it says, I'm all for Mickey Mouse for president, but the sign is 10 by 10. Well, we can regulate and have that sign removed, or we can not permit that sign because it's 10 by 10, not 5 by 5. It doesn't matter that it says Mickey Mouse when everyone
Yeah,
knows
they
that
could
Donald
replace,
Duck
they
should
could
be
replace it.
president.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't trying to regulate message.
We definitely are not,
Right.
definitely not.
I was confused too.
Okay,
Here, you want to turn your mics on?
okay.
Thank you.
I was confused as well. You said something about if you have to read it, that's not
know.
allowed?
If you have to read it to know how to regulate it, then that's an illegal regulation. Because if you're reading it, you know what it's saying, and you're making a determination of this is Christmas
Got
or
it.
this
Okay.
is.
Thank you.
Yep,
Much better. Thank you for the clarification.
yep.
If any of you guys were not confused by that, I'm sorry for taking all the time.
So,
It's all good.
These regulations. Microphone.
I'm just gonna leave it on. I just won't breathe loud. Is there any discussion about lighted signs, video boards? I know when I go by the high school at night and they shine the big bright light, not that it happens very often, but I mean, it can affect people, especially if you live around there, those big bright lights.
Yeah. Sign lighting can be regulated. So what can you regulate? Time, manner, place. Lighting falls into manner. It's the manner of the sign. And so the table has, for each sign type, it tells you what kind of sign lighting is allowed. For electronic message signs, we have I think we have a slide specific to that.
page 23.
It's coming up, it's coming up.
Yep, coming up. With yard
Perfect,
signs.
I can wait.
Okay, let's go through.
Actually, with billboards along the highway, if somebody wanted to build or put up more, you said the current ones are non-conforming. Can they get permits to put these up, or it's just not
Not
gonna
according to
be?
this draft.
Okay, it's just not gonna be allowed after this, no more billboards. Okay.
Right, and that's a
If that's what
policy
you guys
decision. You
want.
can change any of these if you want to allow billboards. That can be something that is modified.
Are those generally owned by the private landowner there? Whoever that is?
Sometimes it could be leased property owned by the, someone could lease land, it really kind of, I think there's
Okay.
different ways to do them. I don't know the industry super well, but
me
sometimes
neither.
it's a lease, that kind of thing.
Yeah, usually like the sign company will own the board itself, and then they rent space on it.
And potentially lease the property that it sits on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a number of solutions, I think, to that, how they regulate or how
Okay.
they make that. Are there any deals made when a state highway comes through those properties, that those landowners that gave up land and all of that, that they're allowed to have billboards? There's no,
There's also state regulation of signs in certain proximity to state highways. That's all DOT realm. This is more along the line of what we can control locally.
so we control it locally because it's 1,500 feet from the center line?
It's in the city. It's property in the city.
Okay, so we're just talking in the city property. Okay,
So this was a unique rule in your existing code that says no commercial signs may be located within 75 feet of a residential zoning district unless the sign is fully screened. I wonder how many commercial signs are within that 75-foot distance. It's just not something that we usually see. So it was pulled out of the draft because overall, like I mentioned, a lot of the sign standards are being made smaller and more, I guess, along the lines of a typical sign size that you'd see. Whereas if you did allow a 500 square foot wall sign, maybe that would be a little bit more obtrusive and should be fully screened from the residential property. It's just not normal.
I don't even know how you could really do this. If you have someone has a pylon sign, do you build like a tall fence, panel fence, or plant a 50-foot white pine and a couple of like
Netting.
and big netting of, yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the, this is a challenging, probably the more challenging piece of the code of what we've looked at so far.
So electronic message signs, what the draft allows, this is allowed for uses in those non-residential zoning districts, one per site. The message center sign itself, the electronic part, can be part of these sign types listed there. So a freestanding sign, and the photos on the slide are examples of a freestanding sign. Those are monument signs. The electronic message area is part of a monument sign. Some other examples. And then a key regulation here that you could change is that we're limiting it to 50% of the sign area. So on these examples, the gateway sign in the middle, that's less than 50% of that sign area. The Douglas Elementary School might be, 30%. I think when we went through this with Milton, they decided to allow it to be 100% of the sign area. I think there's one in Johnson Creek on 26 for a tire shop that has the entire area on the pylon sign is electronic. So that's something that you can change. I think we have to talk about the not visible, if that's really the language that's in there, or if we'd rather just have it be set back 100 feet of a residential zone district.
what's the must-meet lighting standards?
So I'd have to look at the table to see what it says for that. But there are some additional lighting standards above that I think that's referring to, which is auto adjustment for brightness, so as it gets
I
darker.
thought somewhere in the draft code it references a separate lighting section of the code.
Okay.
So we have our sign regulations, and then there's a separate section on lighting. And I think that's what it means, so there'd be some adjustment, that's what I think, somewhere I saw that when I was reviewing things today. I thought I read that somewhere. Don't ask me to find it, though.
Yeah.
But I think that was the approach is to have a lighting section, and then, because there's a number of other kind of lighting issues, and have that detailed there, but.
So the sign at the high school, it's been a long time since I've been there, but it seems to me like would that be considered 100%? The lit sign at the high school? That's what I thought. So, I mean, if we wanted to do the maximum 50%, there would be a non-conforming sign then too?
Is there a way we can bring that up? Because I don't
Yeah.
think it's 100%.
I think it is.
I thought it was, but
I mean, but yeah,
Could be
that's
a
a
little
good
bit.
point.
What you base it,
Have
if it's a
you,
monument
have
sign
you,
and
loo- did you
grass.
go around and look at it at all, Mike? No?
I'm looking at that one right now on Google Streets. It's not 100%. It's got the bird icon on one
Yeah, that's
side
what I
and
thought,
Columbus
yeah.
High School above it. If I had to guess, it's like 75%.
okay.
So it, more than 50 though? Definitely.
Without doing the math and
Yeah.
measuring, I would say
So it would be a
it looks to be
non-conforming.
more than 50, less than 100.
Okay, I didn't remember the bird, but actually now that you say that, oh yeah, it does, I do remember that it has a bird.
And that would be an example if it's there, and so it's going to be grandfathered in, because you would assume there was a sign permit on that,
Yeah.
and so.
It's a nice sign, I wouldn't want, I mean,
I
the
was
only,
not
my only
trying to
concern is, you know, does anybody in the residential area complain about it?
Right. Well,
At night?
I think I like it's really well thought out new code for the record there. It's, things like auto brightness being required, I mean, that
Yep.
makes sense. And I totally can see why you do away with that other older requirement, because the new ones, whether height, size, brightness, you've got some other ways you're controlling anything from being too flashy and too bright.
Yes.
Same regulation in your car.
Yeah, it's probably like 75.
Slow down, getting motion sickness.
But it depends.
There we go.
But here's my question, does the sign include the brick, or does it not include the brick? Because if it includes the brick, it's 50%.
I don't know if I would say
Well,
that.
it's my
this-
question
yeah,
for her.
It's
yeah.
the face of the sign.
It's the
Yeah,
face
not
of the
face of the
sign, so
sign.
it's not the total sign, okay.
So that area on top, white, where it says Columbus High School, and the image on the left are not included. So like you were saying, maybe 75%.
Yeah, has it, to the best of your knowledge, does any of the residential people complain about it being that it's too bright at night at all, or that we know of? Okay.
I'm sure there's one.
I mean,
person out there.
it's bright, I've been by it, but
There's always one.
yeah,
You go
Okay.
by it all the time?
Oh, yeah.
Got your sunglasses on at night?
No, it's not too bad at night.
And it's just the content. I mean, most of the time it's probably dim, but every once in a while there's but, no, everything's grandfathered is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Nothing changes, but if somebody wants to get a permit for a sign,
Yep.
then Mike goes out there with his little ruler and
Yep.
puts everything together, and he tells the cops this is what's approved.
Yep, and if they take this out, then they have to comply. But they
And
don't
on,
have to
and on
change,
this one, what we had, what's the setback on monument signs?
equal to the height from
So-
the property line.
This one would probably be a little bit too close, maybe, looking at it. The height of the sign and if we measure from the edge of the sidewalk to the base, that's probably 50%, So, I mean, that's just applying a real-world scenario.
So in practice, with the revisions, would there be, using this one as an example, they have a parking lot to one side, they probably have it centered in the grass, there's probably a reason why it is where it is. Would there be a variance, procedure that someone could follow if they had a situation
If
where they
they
needed?
wanted to apply for a variance and show a hardship, that's a high standard to meet. But that's always available.
Why would they have to apply for a variance?
If, as we're looking at this one would, let's say we allowed 75% on the message board. That would be, then it would be comply with the new draft. But the setback of the height of this sign is about half of what it currently is in the draft. So it's supposed to be set back an equal amount from the right of way, based on the height of the sign. So I'm just eyeballing it from the picture up here. It looks to be about half of what it should be from a setback distance.
I don't
But
think
that-
the sign's not very tall, so I think it's fine on setback.
It may be, it's hard to tell in a picture,
Huh?
but.
Oh. I don't need to repeat it. I'm sure my voice came through.
But didn't you just say everything is grandfathered? The only time that they would have to apply for those variances is if they change something?
They wouldn't even have to apply for a variance.
Okay.
They could apply for a permit and locate it according to the code.
Okay, if they were making changes.
Yeah.
Okay, but everything else is grandfathered until a change.
I think what you all are talking about though is a conditional use permit, and that's what we're trying to get rid of, right?
No,
Not
I
like
get
a
that. Yeah,
variance.
I get that. The whole goal is to be more clear on
Yeah.
things, have rules where it just goes through the process, city approves it, and it does not need to come through for any sort of committee approval. I was just questioning if when there's a situation where something doesn't fit the mold, if there was that process.
There is a
So-
variance,
Yeah,
in the zoning
okay.
code, and, but it's a high bar to meet. You have to show a hardship. That isn't self-created. But that option is there.
So basically, it would not, I mean, if it's, you can't self-make the problem.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think we should not consider even a variance being an option. If you think that like this isn't good, bring it up, because it sounds like if you decide to put your parking lot there, you can't ask to put your sign in that little space if it goes against code, because
Right,
you
and-
chose to put
And
it
honestly,
there.
in this situation, if you were starting over from scratch and putting a new sign there today, you would probably just put the sign a little bit further down the road where they have more green space.
Right, right.
And move it in 5
Yeah,
feet.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I feel like the existing sign was there
yeah, it probably was,
from way back when, so. At least that's what I remember, but that's been a
And
while.
that's one of the things, it's like if you have an alternate place to put it on site, that's not a basis for, getting a variance.
Right.
All
What
right,
if you have that situation where let's take this for instance, and the parking lot is 10 feet 10 feet more of grass, and they say we want to expand our parking lot closer to that sign. Does that matter then? You're not moving the sign, you're just bringing that parking lot closer. Does that
We would
matter
have
at
to
all?
take a look at what the parking lot rules are and how that applies to setbacks to the right of way. It's all that parking lot related stuff. Changing the parking lot would not impact the
Okay.
location of the sign.
Very good. Thank you.
Some other details on the electronic message signs, we're saying that it can't change frequency quicker than every 3 seconds. So you can't change it every 1 second or every 2 seconds. It has to run for 3 seconds before it changes. That's a common regulation. People think that these might have a, public safety concern with vehicles and trying to read them if they're too fast. But the city of Watertown mayor, it was kind of funny, she was like, well, I actually slow down, I wish it would change faster when I'm trying to read the Culver's, flavor of the day. And she has to slow down in the road to be able to read it. But for the most part, people like the slower signs.
Well,
is it,
an
is it
example-
tied to speed limit?
Yeah.
And an example of one that, like I've seen that I think does look problematic is if you're driving towards Madison and you go past the diesel driving school, is exceptionally bright when it's dark out and uses red and blue colors. And when you're coming down the highway, it actually looks like there's an emergency scene going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
And that's the kind of thing I think you'd want to
Yeah,
avoid.
yeah. And if you're changing the message every second, it almost turns into, it has the effect of flashing, like you
Right.
said. And I think we don't allow flashing in this, flashing signs, in this ordinance, so,
Well, that's extremely
Yeah.
distracting if it would go
but
too fast.
here's the
yeah.
thing, you know, this is one of these things that some of this stuff is like, oh, no one, you know, no one's gonna really do that, but there's always somebody that will do something like that. It's like, well, that's what I wanna do. And then it's just obnoxious, so you got, some of the stuff you have to have it in there. And, because there's one in every crowd.
All right, we're on number 3 yet.
Yard signs, this one's a little bit tricky to explain, but, so an example of an off-premise sign is a billboard. We talked about that. It's advertising something for sale that is not located where the billboard is. It's off-premise from the location. But another example of off-premise signs are, you know, the yard signs that you put in your yard, and very common, we see like a small business, a roofing company does your roof, and they want to advertise and put the yard sign in your property. That's off-premise, the business is not located there. But we can say that off-premise yard signs are allowed if you want to be less strict. So you could be very strict and say no off-premise signs allowed at all in the city of Columbus. We want free of sign clutter. We want a tight regulation on that, and you say this is not allowed. Or you can choose, you can say, we're gonna prohibit billboards, but for yard signs, it's a type of sign. We're gonna say you can have off-premise yard signs so that these, you know, smaller business advertising opportunities exist.
Well, I'll go. I think they should be allowed. When
Me
we
too.
had, when we had our roof done, we had a sign in the yard. It was no problem, and then, you know, especially if you're using a small business person, that you can, you know, they have their sign in your yard for a couple weeks to advertise for them.
Yeah, I agree, we should allow it.
I feel like, if anything, a size limitation or a time limitation, more so time, size. Someone putting up a massive sign.
Well, we
that
have a 4x4 requirement, so we're not gonna have them.
Okay, so there's a, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's 4x4. What? Oh. We have a 4x4 requirement, so it's not gonna be, you know, a 10 by 10 or 25 by 25 sign.
So what are the rules for taking that yard sign off of your property?
I was just checking if there's a time limitation, and it says they may be displayed permanently, but typically they're not.
No, I'm saying off
Oh.
your premise, up to the street corner. What are the rules on,
Do you mean setback?
what?
Do you mean
I
setback?
think, do you mean like when a
No, no,
realtor
no,
puts
so
a sign
my,
down the
I'm
street?
advertising my rummage sale, and I go 3 blocks that way, put it on a corner, I go 3
That's not
blocks that
allowed.
way.
No.
Huh?
That's a yard sign in the right of way.
Right.
Okay,
That's not allowed.
that's not allowed. So all those signs out there last week were illegal.
That is
Yes.
correct.
Now, if they would have gotten property owner permission and put it on private property under this current draft, was it
Yep.
1 per yard?
2.
2 per yard? Then that would be legal.
Okay.
So it must be like an unspoken rule for garage sales season.
Well,
That's
and
where-
and hockey and soccer and baseball.
It's a code enforcement challenge of who does that and the time to go around and do that.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
I'll add another part to this, campaign signs. So 2 per yard are allowed. But sometimes there are multiple different races occurring, and maybe one spouse doesn't agree with the other, and you want to have 8 yard signs during campaign season. So to get around that, there's a footnote in here, because you can't regulate and say that's a political sign for candidate X, so we're taking it out. But we're managing around time of when campaigns happen, and campaigns are defined in state law. So the footnote says during a campaign period, any number of yard signs is permitted within 60 days prior to and 10 days following. So 10 days after the election, you have to take out the extra signs. And then you also get a little bit of a boost in size, maximum 32 square feet, because some people really like their candidate and do the big sign.
So theoretically, around an election, 60 days prior, you could have a whole bunch of unlimited number of
Yeah.
carpet cleaning and roofing company yard signs, if you
Yes,
wanted to,
that's
in
right.
that period.
Yep.
Because it's content
Yep.
neutral regulation.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll have people taking advantage of that. At least one guy.
So I can.
There's always one.
So we have a few people in Columbus that are politically active, and a few people have political signs in their yard like 24/7. So, and it's not in the right of way, and it's been going on for years, and I've never seen these signs taken down. So what about if you have like a fair maps sign put in your yard? Is that considered a political sign?
We don't regulate by
Yeah.
political sign.
Okay.
You can't, yeah.
It's a sign type, so if it's a
Okay,
yard
so-
sign,
Well, okay, I'm asking, so you just got done saying that if it's around a campaign and you had the 10 days and the 60 days, is a fair map sign considered a campaign sign?
It doesn't matter what's on the sign.
doesn't matter what's on the sign.
Okay.
In that 60 days prior, any kind of yard sign is allowed, any number of yard signs, instead of the two.
Two, otherwise rest of the year it's two.
Okay.
Rest of the year, most of the year it's two, except around election time.
Okay,
Then it's unlimited.
all right, I'm gonna put 10-yard signs in
But
my
it's
yard.
unlimited, but it has to be removed after 10 days.
Of the
After the
election.
election,
the election.
defined by.
Then you gotta go down to two.
Yep.
You can still have the
Or you
campaign
can have a
signs.
permanent two-signer.
You can still keep your Mickey Mouse sign up.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
And any political message, as long as you're complying with two, you can regulate quantity, the location, the type, the height. It can say whatever you want on it.
Or your favorite carpet shampooer.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a key question, you don't have to do the campaign thing, you can just do strict two per, but I feel like for freedom of speech and,
I
challenges
think-
that come with that.
I like the way that's handled. That, it makes sense.
Okay.
It's addressing it in a creative way.
One that is not on these slides, but that Mike and David and I talked about are window signs. So I wanted to mention that. Window signs in a downtown, for example, they're usually something that's inside the building, taped to the window, viewable from outside. Might advertise that donuts are for sale or whatever. It says the code regulates this to 25% of the window area. So you measure the window and you say, and then you measure the sign, and that can't exceed 25% of the window area. There are definitely window signs in the downtown now that take up closer to 70, 80%. And depending on your opinion, you might think they look nice. And there are times when rules like this would be abused and it's, more commonly thought of as ugly. Someone might tar their entire window with their cell phone store advertisements. And when you have a big commercial store frontage and you might have 2 or 3 in a row in a multi-commercial tenant space, people don't like that. So finding the right balance. It's also tough to regulate
Yeah, like, right,
or
and
enforce.
the current draft and our current code as well, a permit's not required for a window sign. And so, and I think that's probably pretty common. I will say, if wearing a zoning administrator hat, I don't see a window sign being any different than a wall sign, like in a downtown. How is that different? It still is taking up square footage on the wall, and then if a permit isn't required, I think it's kind of human nature, because there's not any kind of review going on, that the size gets easily exceeded because there's not a permit required and there's no review. So I kind of understand not having a permit, but I also don't see how it's any different than a wall sign.
So you're saying you are okay with it or not okay with
Part
it?
of me is I kind of like requiring a permit for a window sign
Oh.
because I think there's you get it.
I feel like there should be a minimum size that.
I feel
is-
like there should be too.
Yep.
That's like under 11 by 17 and smaller, we're not regulating. Someone wants to stick a sign on their window that says they're out to lunch.
Right, or
they're
help wanted or
closed
something.
For a week or help wanted. I mean, I don't think we want to be in the business of regulating such small things.
Right.
But yeah, but in, for example, like in downtown, a lot of times it's not that kind of stuff that I'm worried about. It's
Right.
like they're using the whole window for
It's almost
their-
like
for their-
privacy shielding is the
Yeah.
signs.
It's pretty much their,
Wall.
it's pretty much function, it's advertising their whole business. It's not
Right.
the
I
stuff
mean,
you're talking
the
about.
size might be.
Yeah, so there could be
I
like
think
a
you have to find a
minimum,
threshold.
like a minimum threshold, like 50 you know.
I like
But- but-
25.
But what is the window sign? I mean, if I've got window dressings across my whole window, or if I've got a display in my window, I mean, what is the sign, how is that different from whatever I do on the backside of that window? Anyways, what are you trying to regulate?
The sign size,
The sign size, but what are you regulating?
the sign,
Just the sign,
the definition of the sign in the code.
okay? So,
Advertising the business, the product, or service.
so if I put up a big wallpaper green forest on my window, you're okay with that?
Are you selling trees?
No,
Then it's art.
okay. That's fine.
What did
Depends
you
what
say
you're
was
do-
the draft? Again, is it drafted at 25%? Okay.
I think 25% makes sense. I mean, so, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there were some signs up downtown that were probably not, that they probably could have been construed as, political in nature during COVID. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like, whatever, the bakery wants to put a sign in their window and you want to make sure that it stays under.
Well, that would count too. I mean, it doesn't matter what's on the sign. It can't be bigger than 25% is what the draft code says.
Okay, but a political sign's not necessarily selling something. It's just stating an opinion.
Oh, you mean his definition of a
Yeah.
sign?
So a mural is art.
It's not, if you're a bicycle shop and the mural doesn't have bicycles in it, then I would say it's more of a mural.
Well, if
we-
that's
we
like a
have-
trail.
What's that? Yeah. We have businesses downtown that they'll paint, winter themes and
Yeah.
holiday themes just to create a festive atmosphere
Yeah.
in downtown. To me, that's not a sign.
No, that's not a sign.
That's decoration.
Temporary.
But if it's, it really all goes back to a definition of what a sign is. And I don't have it in front of me, but generally it's anything that draws attention to a product, service, product or service or brand or the name of the business itself. That's essentially what a sign is.
So the political example, that would not be counted as a sign then, based on that definition.
So then would they be like, okay, so like a political sign in my yard, I can have 4x4. So then if somebody puts a derogatory sign up in their window and can they do 4x4,
It's freedom of speech.
right? That's,
If we allow 4x4 signs, we
So
have to allow
if
it.
it's I guess I'd have to look into that more on the political speech thing, because we talk about yard signs, and if we're just, it gets down to that definition part.
Yeah.
So
And-
I don't,
For the most part, we're not reading the sign. We just
Yeah.
keep it simple, whatever it is,
I just
egregious
know that,
things.
and there's been some stuff down on River Road that a few people have been offended by, so, and,
I
I
don't
know,
think, we
you know,
can't do anything about that.
yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like they can't, you can't.
but I mean, would you, when it comes to.
That's too subjective, though.
like
one thing
a
that offends you may
Christmas
not
or
offend me.
I agree.
Winter scene painted on a window.
That's why
I
it has to
agree
be
with you
content-
100%.
That's why it has to be content neutral. We can't
That's art.
regulate that.
Art and temporary.
Yeah. You know, in some communities, they will get into the business of regulating murals. But that's mural regulation, that's not sign regulation. So I think probably on our conversation here, if someone had
I would say no sign, no matter what, larger than 25% downtown.
What about,
Window size.
what
Right.
about,
Window sign.
window sign,
like the police department put that two-way,
vinyl. over
vinyl
window.
up? What if I was a business that wanted to do like Nate's Bakery and then list off all the stuff and put this big vinyl sheet over my window? I can see out, but you can't see in. Is that considered a sign
It
or,
would be a sign.
so that could only be,
That would probably be a temporary banner sign.
but if it's stuck to the window?
Yeah, the police department, for safety of victims, didn't want the public
Oh,
seeing
yeah.
in, so it's vinyl that is one-way see-through.
It doesn't contain any sort of message or.
No, what I'm
Well,
saying,
it
like
has a
if,
city logo on it, so yeah, it is a sign.
if a business wanted to do that and cover their whole front window with that, would they be subjected to the 25 or 50, whatever we're talking about here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever the percentage is, yeah.
All right.
Well, and what about just a sunscreen, over a window, because the sun, versus.
Doesn't contain
that's-
any messages.
Right, okay, so they
not a
can,
sign.
you can have a black sunscreen or whatever, gray sunscreen, as long as it doesn't have words on it, it can be as big as they want it to be, okay?
Like the ones that people would put in the car with the big sunglasses on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I think I heard comments on decision that a lot of direction you guys want to go. Just rolling through some of them. You're okay with the highway overlay 1,500 feet from center line to allow taller signs than you otherwise do throughout the community. You're okay with prohibiting billboards, generally. Electronic message center, 50% of the area, or increase that to 75.
would
I
okay
could be
with
convinced to
increasing.
75.
Yeah, I say
75.
75.
Allow the off-premise yard signs. And you support the campaign provision, window signs, 25%. Yeah, okay. Are there any other key questions? There's some detailed language we have to clean up as staff.
Yeah, there's some detailed language in there, cleanup. There is language in there regarding abandoned signs. When a business ceases to operate. And there's some cleanup language on what could be removed. The sign frame. I think we probably have some non-operating businesses with signs up. And so there's a provision in there, that gives, I forget, there's some options to consider for removal. I think,
Does it require them to remove it? Is that what you're getting at?
yeah, if there's, for instance, the purpose of this is, let's say you have a business that, like, here's an example from River Falls, when I was up there. There was a bunch of vacant buildings, and there was a insurance business. They had a sign up. It was not there. People come into town, oh, I want to go to this business, and they get out, whoa, wait, it's not here. And it's just a really bad look. Or you have a frame of a sign, but they pull out the inside of the guts, and you have this like metal frame, and it's an aesthetic thing that doesn't really look good. And we have a number of inactive businesses where this could apply.
Like there's a giant furniture sign,
Yep.
which is kind of funny because it's actually almost historic, and that one I would hate to see come down because it actually is, it's like a bit of history.
It adds some
Right, it's
flavor
part of
and
the
character,
building.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
So I have mixed feelings in that.
But that's
in general,
grandfathered.
I would, well, but is it grandfathered if it's abandoned and vacant?
Well, I'd have to go back. I think we have some of this provision in our current code. But the details on the timing of compliance, like after notice, I'd have to go in there to see. I think the current draft allows, I don't know, 60, 90 days to remove it, and then up to 6-month extension or something like that, in the current draft. But I'm pretty sure we do have something along this lines in our current sign code. But I just want to, because this is an issue in a lot of downtowns, and it can help things, and also, like Steve says, you can have mixed feelings on it as well. But it's an important tool to have. In River Falls, when I was up there, there was nothing in the code on abandoned signs, and we had to create that tool to deal with some things.
And I almost wonder, I mean, like, I'm on Google Maps, I'm just looking through the downtown, literally, as we're thinking about this, but I wonder if in that provision, there'd just be, in that code, there'd just be a line that says signs that could be seen as historic or,
Or
historically important.
decoration. I mean, that could be argued that that's decorative, that
Yep.
furniture sign.
Yep.
And there are more specific ways to do it. We could definitely put in, marquee signs in the DMU district may remain, if they existed on such date and
Right.
before.
And there's another part in the second part of this meeting, we talk about design standards in downtown and like a review process. So it could be incorporated into that potentially as well. You'll see, when we get to that part, you'll see what we're talking about, but I know exactly what you
So
mean.
we
There's-
can come up with something for the sign code and review it together. And
Yeah. It's a good kind of topic to kind of think about. Yeah,
Okay.
because the other one might be too, well, it's not abandoned, but there's other similar style signs in downtown that I think add, if you have too much uniformity, I'm thinking one of the strip malls in my hometown I recently saw, all the signs were cream, everything was cream on like a cream background, and it was like, oh my God, I almost threw up. It was so neutral. But when you have a variety of sign types, and colors, and it adds a certain character to your downtown, so you want to kind of be careful.
Correct, like Nitschke Market. Nitschke Market's been gone for what, 70
North
years?
Florissant.
You would never want to tell them to take that historic sign off that building.
gorgeous down there.
Right.
love that.
Or like the Bill X sign.
We want
too.
more of that.
The business that's gone.
But yeah, so some of these are so anyways, it's a good topic, but it is, if you don't have that tool in your toolbox, you get there's ones out there are really kind of
Yeah, absolutely. There's some that,
detracting from.
there's some that aren't a positive thing when they're left behind, and there's some that are. And you just want to be sure that the code doesn't accidentally force removal of positive things.
I think you guys get what we're saying, so you'll
Yep.
probably have the direction you
We'll-
need, right?
We'll figure something out, yeah.
thanks. Gonna go to historic preservation.
Sure.
All right, so.
Do we need to formally close out 4 and formally start 5?
We also have the stakeholder, you want to go over that quick?
Nothing surprising here. There's one slide, literally, just to make sure that we captured and reported back on the focus group.
Where are we at?
This is focus group summary.
We had a developer focus group, and real estate agent focus group end of April, and getting their feedback on the direction of the code.
What agenda item is this?
I combine them, the signs.
Oh, the
and-
developer stakeholder, so we're still on 4, okay.
Yep, we're
Perfect.
still on 4.
basically the focus group was supportive of the direction that this was going. So there were individuals that were realtors, developers, single family, commercial, have done development in Columbus or in other communities, Madison, have worked with newer types of development or newer housing types like ADUs. So they understood the regulations that we were talking about and were able to provide some professional feedback on them. And this just really, really briefly summarizes what we talked about. They were particularly supportive of the things that you all have said you're also supportive of. So regulations that support additional housing development, and just some of the examples here, like smaller lots, allowing accessory dwelling units as permitted use, not having a specific density metric. We went over these things in part 1. So we don't have a regulation that says no more than 20 dwelling units per acre. Instead, we have a building height and we have building setbacks. And what you can fit for units within that envelope is how many units you can get, rather than applying a density metric. So they were supportive of these things.
Yep. Yep. And I think, yeah. Anyways. All right. Historic preservation. On to number 5. Right?
Yep.
Does Mike need to read 5 to formally start it? I don't know, I'm just trying
I
to,
would think so, but,
Yeah.
are we gonna go through them all? I got a different agenda numbers here. I don't know what's going on. Okay,
Consider and take action related to amending.
yeah, so consider and take action regarding the rewriting of the zoning code related to signs and the developer stakeholder feedback. That's what we just went through, right? Okay. We don't need to take action. We've taken action. Everything's good. Number 5, consider and take action related to amending the section of the zoning code pertaining to historic preservation and downtown design standards.
So I'll use the PowerPoint again to explain things, but I'll just let you know what's in the packet as well. So there are 3 sections of draft text. One is in chapter 2 of your code. That is about the composition of your HLPC, the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission. So that's just how the body is composed, members, et cetera. There's a second section that is a historic preservation overlay district. That's very similar to what you have today, and I'll explain that further.
Just a little background. About a year and a half ago, the city council kind of did a revision of chapter 2 of the municipal code, which is the creation of committees and their duties, and really tried to get each committee to be structured very similarly. And so that was done, I think, just about for every locally created committee, except for historic HLPC. And that was because it was built in, it was created, that committee's created in the zoning code. And so we knew this rewrite was coming up. So we kind of put that on the back burner to do it through this process. So now that's being addressed. So we're actually proposing to take parts of this out, the creation of the committee, move it into chapter 2 with all the other committees. And actually, as Sonia gets in there, you'll also see us taking this historic preservation overlay out of the zoning code into its own historic preservation chapter. So that's kind of what's coming forth.
Okay, so I'll go through the slides to talk through it. So again, just showing you where this information lives related to historic preservation. In chapter 2, that's where we establish the zoning districts. So this will be relevant to an overlay, historic preservation overlay. And we're gonna talk about DMU. DMU is your downtown. The historic preservation overlay gets applied only in areas where a landmark has been formally designated. So say there's a historic house, it goes through the proper nomination and designation procedures. Now it's a local landmark that has HPO, Historic Preservation Overlay. It doesn't apply anywhere unless those formal standards are applied. And then in Article 7, we we have design standards. Those are going to apply only to the DMU. So what I'll explain is that these design standards are attempting to get at community character, but without all of the additional kind of regulatory tape of a traditional historic district. It's design standards. It can have nothing to do with landmarks, landmarks districts, state, federal, local. It's just design standards in the DMU that happen to be related to historic character. And you can go ahead. So your existing code has Division 9, Historic Sites and Structures, and the bullet points there are just how that section is laid out. You might have heard of this being referred to as it's a standard CLG ordinance. So Certified Local Government is something recognized by State Historic Preservation Office, and you have to meet certain standards. And when you're a CLG community, you get certain benefits. So that's basically what your code is today. I think you can keep going. So where it applies, they're saying it's only to designated local landmarks. I don't even know if you have any that have followed the formal local procedures, City Hall. In Monona, when I worked there, we had, we wanted to become a CLG community, so we worked with the state and we got a brand new ordinance. And then just for really clear records, we went through and renominated every single local landmark and created a record nomination form and everything. So then we knew what applied. It has to be nominated. I think right now anybody can nominate a property. If it's your house, your neighbor can nominate it, and then it goes through the procedures, and HLPC is the final decider on that. And when you become in this historic preservation overlay, when you do an alteration, you have to get a certificate of appropriateness. You have to go to HLPC to ask for that. They get 45 days to do it, and I think they have final decision. But if you want to appeal that decision, you go to council. So that's how this works.
And our current ordinance, you can appeal, I believe it's based, and you have to show economic hardship, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Can I ask a quick question? So I know you said that the City Hall is designated historic. Well, Sampson's is on the Wisconsin Historic website. So does that mean when you say it's because you're only talking local, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Sampson's Pharmacy has been designated historic in Wisconsin.
Right.
It may show up in the inventory at the state. It doesn't mean it's designated at the state level. It's part of a state, the downtown is a designated state historic district. And not every building in the district is a contributing building, even though it's within a district. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I know there's many buildings on the state website. So they do a survey to collect information on certain buildings, but that doesn't mean they're designated as a state historic building. And I know that's been miscommunicated by people in the community on other projects in the last couple of years. Just because it's on that state website does not mean it's a historic building.
Okay.
Okay, so you can go ahead. So the new approach suggesting this is to keep that ordinance basically as you have it now. We would do a few things like move the composition out and maybe look at the nomination procedures, but basically keep that, and you would continue to use that for formally designated local landmarks, City Hall, and whatever its future is, or other properties that might be locally designated in the future. And then we're going to add design standards for the DMU district, the downtown, to try to achieve those community character goals without having to go through historic district. So we can go ahead. Downtown design, it's not an overlay. It's just DMU, so there's standards specific to that. Just like signage, you have a downtown signage overlay. We're getting rid of that. So what type of review would be required? Downtown design review is something that might show up on your agendas in the future. So if a property wants to paint their brick building downtown, that's going to have some review attached to it, and it might show up on your agenda, downtown design review for XX James Street, and then you would be reviewing the color of paint, for example. The approval authority doesn't have to go to HLPC at all. You can. Mount Horeb just went through this and decided that the HLPC was going to give a recommendation to Plan Commission. The way that it's drafted, that we've talked about, would be just Plan Commission. You can add in historic if you want. And then no, not going to council, so just coming to Plan Commission.
How does that work, Mike, with how we're trying to organize? Oh, never mind, because it doesn't go to council, so never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
right.
it went to council, then I got confused because it comes to plan commission instead of HLPC, so it skips one commission to go to another commission, but that doesn't matter with our structure with going to council. You probably know where I'm talking about, but I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
gibberish.
yes.
So never mind, just everybody up here, forget I spoke.
Shut up, the microphone.
So HLPC is the final decider on landmarks. This is just design standards to review for downtown only. And I think right now it's written that it would go to Plan Commission to be reviewed and decided upon, either approved, denied, or recommended changes. You could have HLPC provide a recommendation for you to consider in your review. So really, this is really about downtown, do you want design standards to be reviewed in downtown? And two, who do you want to do that review and approval? That's kind of the questions we're asking.
And then if you,
I'm good with it skipping HLPC and purely because we've had a lot of complaints from businesses in that process in the past. So, and I think if Plan Commission is trying to define the standards we want and the kind of the look and the feel that we want for downtown, I think it should just come to us and skip that middleman, I'm sure.
I'm
Shelley.
going to agree,
Yeah.
because I'm familiar with what Molly's talking about. And some business owners have gotten, had some major frustration because of wanting the requirement of dealing with the HLPC, so.
But not being in the approval flow recommendations, you guys okay with that, or?
I mean, yeah, do we have a resident historic person that, an expert, shall we say? Is there such thing as a historic expert in our community?
the composition of that committee is supposed to be some sort of demonstrated, at
Right.
least high interest or profession in historic.
I have mixed feelings on what the process would be. I feel like the individuals that are on the HLPC have a real passion for history. And I do think they're people who are very knowledgeable about historically accurate buildings and preservation. I like the idea of letting that knowledgeable group weigh in on it, but then this group taking it as a recommendation and then
Right.
doing the final vote so that we could consider their expertise, but then a group of people that's perhaps a little more focused on the bigger picture approving it. I don't like adding multiple steps and adding more time for property owners to get things reviewed. So that's the pros and cons that I see in this situation.
Yeah, can we limit that
It wouldn't
step?
delay it, but they would have an
Yeah, because it's
opportunity.
gonna delay it. Yeah, if it goes to,
Oh, it has to,
maybe,
the more groups it goes through, the more time it takes to come out.
can we just have it just come here and have HLPC come to
That's
that meeting?
exactly, I was gonna say, what we
Okay.
could do in the process is say, it comes to Plan Commission, and HLPC members get notified,
Yeah.
and they can participate in a public comments or, the communication part at
I
the
like
meeting.
that.
Yep.
Yep.
And
They can share their concerns and share their knowledge,
Yep, yep.
but not add extra time, not add
And
extra
so
layers.
if they
to
wanna
it.
have each member come up and make their comments, or send a designated person, they can do that as well. Because, you know, if they would show up, you know, and then it gets you know, you need to get the information in ahead of time, and then you're basing it, HLPC meets in the month after Plan Commission, and then, you know, it really does add on the time.
Okay.
So
No,
this-
I like that.
This is a critical choice of who do you want involved and how and timing. And Steve, you summed it up perfectly.
I like your solution.
And I mean, HLPC
Molly's.
could come,
It's Molly's solution.
I mean,
Kudos.
HLPC could come no matter what, but I think this shows our ask for a recommendation without adding to the process, inviting them
Yep.
to the table versus them having to come to the table on their own as public
Yes.
comment. So
Yes.
I like the more
And
collaborative
it
feel
could
to
be,
it.
it could be a designate, it could be on the agendas, HLPC representative
Right.
comments. So then they're also maybe, you know, so then they're not lumped into the public, and maybe they
Yes.
have more time than just the 3 minutes or.
Yeah, because we'll want to ask questions
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And public comment is typically you just speak and then you go
Yeah,
sit back
yep,
down.
yep.
So
So that we can write it up so there's a designated formal time, and it could be, every member on that commission could have an opportunity to speak, or it could be a representative, whatever works out for that commission.
So do we have written standards in regards to what we consider as historic? That's legitimate historic versus, you know, not
We
being
have
ju-
proposed that we
what-
should talk through.
Okay, because one of the things that I know is a contentious is the window design. Because, you know, to adhere to a historic window, I mean, you really can't, they're cost prohibited. And so then we come up with an idea, and I'm not entirely sure all of some of the buildings downtown, were actually done I don't think they did a very good job. And that's why I'm asking about standards.
Okay, let's look at some examples of that. And this is all going to come down to how detailed you want to be, so I would suggest that after the conversation, you take some extra time looking at the printout and see what you're comfortable with. From the focus group, we did hear that they liked this approach as long as, because it provided predictability and objective standards. There were specific things in here that they knew what the rules would be, and it takes out some of the subjectivity. But it is a lot, especially if you're not used to or if you're not currently regulating these types of features in the downtown. My opinion, you have beautiful downtown, and where that regulation, you know, some people care deeply if you are going to paint an entire building black, if that is not an approved color in the Sherwin-Williams historic color palette. Or if you're going to paint the window mullions black, if that building had not historically had dark window mullions, the type of glass, the proportion of glass, missing teeth, for example. If you have, all of the buildings are 2-story, you can't come and do a 1-story building, and that's the missing tooth. Or like articulation every 40 feet. So here's some of the examples. So overall, this part in your packet talks about a design theme. It's historic, pedestrian-oriented, mixed uses. There are minimal setbacks, so buildings are up close to the street. The parking is on-street. Architectural styles reflective that were popular at the time, those are described as to what they actually are. There are storefront facades, so there's minimum amounts of glazing, windows. There are these horizontal and vertical patterns. So like horizontal pattern might be, here's the window storefront on the first level, and then the vertical pattern has maybe a signage band, and then there's the windows on the second floor for residential, and then there's window cornices and maybe a top thing. So those are all like these patterns, regularly spaced windows and doors, as opposed to if you didn't have regulations like this, you can put bricks in here and then put a modern window over here, and you end up with a completely different building that doesn't match the character that you're going for. Setbacks are from the DMU. You should have proportionate height and width from the theme. These are just paraphrased from the code. Facade articulation means you have to, every 40 feet, have a recess or a projection, and that can be achieved in a lot of different ways. So that could be, you have a recess into a door, the door entry, or you can do it with materials. So if you have siding, all the same, you know, just across that 40 feet, you can't do that unless you have then a break. And that could be either recess, projection, or you could change the material to brick.
From
or
like
you
wood,
could have a window.
wood lap to
Yep.
brick to
Yep, you
something
could
like
change
that.
color, so it can be achieved in a lot of different ways.
Do we have anything in our code for that today?
I don't know.
No.
Another example, colors, I wanted to point that out, because on the surface, it can shock people. You're gonna tell me what color to paint, but then when it gets painted bright orange or black or whatever it is, then people have that reaction as well. So the Sherwin-Williams palette, I was looking at it at another meeting, it's quite extensive. You pick from the period of time that the building architecture is, and you can use any of those. There are many, many colors, but it prohibits the very shocking colors. Yeah.
And Sherwin was part of it.
Yep. So kind of just jumping back to why we would maybe keep the existing piece as well, is because it's not applying to the downtown where you might have these character considerations, but you still have a HLPC, and you might still have that desire as a community on landmarks, and you can unlock other things. Like if you have a CLG ordinance, you can do a citywide architectural survey. I've done that, and it's really fun for people that are interested in that. It can open tax credits for property owners. But point is here is that we're separating this from the downtown. So, yeah, sort of key policy questions. Do you want to keep that? Do you like the idea of design standards for downtown? We talked about recommendation from HLPC. And then Mike and David and I will go through some fine grain detail, like nomination process and things like that, but you're welcome to comment on anything else.
And one point I want to make clear, in this draft, on the landmark designation, what would be different from what it currently is. Currently, HLPC has the final decision. In this current draft, it's a recommendation to the city council. We still have to work on what the appeal to that would be, if it would be to the zoning board of appeals or the circuit court. That's something we're gonna talk over with Paul, the city attorney. But that's a significant change.
And I just want to be clear, that's something that just comes to us, that wouldn't have to go to council then, to get a building nominated as historic, right?
That would go to let's say they're, like the Kurth Mansion.
Yep.
Kurth Mansion's not nominated, it's not a locally designated structure. And I think we list in there who can nominate it. HLPC can, the city council, plan commission, city staff. I don't think we list the property owner, but we may wanna do that if someone wants to nominate their own property.
I thought she said even your neighbor could.
Well, in the current code.
Oh, in the
This
current
is,
code.
this is the
Okay.
current, the current draft.
So the current draft is one of your standalone attachments. Nominations for designation of a single property or a historic district under this chapter may be submitted to the commission, being you, by the HLPC, by the common council, or city staff. Members of the public may request consideration of a nomination. However, all nominations must be initiated or authorized by one of the above entities. So that's draft language, just putting it in a little bit more formal.
So has it come into the plan commission, not
Yeah.
HLPC? Okay.
And then they don't have to go to council,
Oh, no, I'm wrong. It goes to HLPC.
Goes to HLPC.
and then comes to planning commission.
And then what happens next?
I
So
think it
the
goes to council.
HLPC holds a hearing, a public hearing. The commission, HLPC, makes a recommendation to the council.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed, at least in this current draft, it's a simplified process. Our current process for approving historic designations, there's a lot of like specific number of days, and you really gotta be on top of this every little along the way, and David can testify, cause he's been working on these. It's a rigorous And if you don't hit those markers, then you gotta start over again. So the way I think it's written up simplifies it. And I think that's real positive, but I think the main difference in this is who has the final decision. And I think this kind of goes back to all the committee revisions we did a year and a half ago. We wanted consistency and generally wanted, and Molly and the mayor's here, but generally wanted to have committees make recommendations to the council. I believe that was the direction of things, right? So this aligns with all that committee work that was done by the council a year ago. And then again, we have to work on the appeals process on what that would be, and we'll talk with the city attorney on that. Okay, so you're comfortable with that direction?
Definitely.
Theoretically, I mean, so I think what I see probably more happening, more than likely, is individual homes like the Kurth Mansion, or maybe if locally we wanted to designate the mid-century modern district on Warner Street, something like that. Those kinds of things. I would think the design standards that are in here really serve as the protection, the historic protection. It's just doing it differently through the plan commission. Okay.
Yeah, and I can see, the conflict you're gonna have at some point is when a property owner isn't interested in preserving history and the community is, and how is this written to stop things when it should, while still preserving the rights of property owners, and that's always that balance in there.
Yep.
So actually, I have a question in regards to that. So if the downtown is designated historic, does that automatically put that onus on the owner to, if they're gonna own a building down there, that they should try to adhere to the historic standards? And the reason I ask is going back to the windows thing. I mean, wood windows, traditional historic windows are super expensive. You could have a couple $100,000 in there. And I think we can work around it, but I would totally hate to see white plastic windows in some of our historic buildings.
Yeah, so in the downtown district, that would be downtown design review alteration. And depending on what it is, it comes to plan commissioner. If it's small, it goes to staff.
Okay.
But that comes up as downtown design. If it's a designated landmark under HPO, if you make downtown a district,
Yep.
it's a little bit different. It would be a certificate of appropriateness.
So you have 2 layers of review. So, and theoretically, that could happen. But to have that district created, it would have to go to council, to have it for the final decision. So council would have to say, do we need 2 layers of protection for downtown? But also, but the residential historic districts don't have any local protection currently, because we don't have any local stuff other than City Hall. And that's where HLPC would come into play. Well, this would be in downtown. City Hall would be in downtown, but say the Kurth Mansion, that would be,
Well, in the Poser home.
yeah, some of those
you
other
know,
ones.
And,
Yeah.
there's, I mean, if you go to our website, there's at least a half a dozen
Yeah.
historic homes that we technically advertise as being historic.
Some of them are state, recognized by
Yeah.
the state and the National Park Service.
Yeah.
All right, where we at?
I think I heard general consensus, so I'm good with what I've gotten, and we'll work on detailed language.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Nate, you gotta leave in 20 minutes. Is there something on the agenda you want?
Yes, I have to leave in hours for enough time to talk about.
All right.
Okay. Thank you,
Good.
Sonia.
Yep, thanks, we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, anyone need a break? Any, just,
Let's get her done.
let's get her done.
Get
Okay,
her done.
I'm gonna try to
You
go.
making a motion to?
It's not 8:30. We said 8:30
I'm-
was our.
All right, I've got to find the right agenda here. I got two of them going.
I'm gonna
here.
go through this,
So we are number 5.
We're on 6.
We're on 6.
The recent legislation one. I don't know what agenda you have.
Consider and discuss recent legislation related to comprehensive planning and affordable housing.
so I'm gonna try to go, if you need me to slow down or go back over anything, please let me know. Quick history, 2001, the state approved mandatory comprehensive planning for towns, cities, villages, and counties, and actually regional plan commissions as well. It sometimes was referred to as the city planner employment bill. So there's a lot of planning going on since then. So 9 elements of a comprehensive plan. And then a couple of years later, required 9 elements, and then required consistency. It talked about decisions being consistent with the plan, but it didn't say what decisions. So then there was an amendment saying zoning decisions, like a rezone, subdivision, like a plat, like we did at Cardinal Heights. That would have to be consistent with the plan. And then official mapping. And if I would have remembered right, I would have brought in our official map that was adopted in 2008. I have it in a frame in our office. Jason Letha has it in an AutoCAD file somewhere. Hasn't been updated since, but those generally, it's a way to reserve right-of-ways or future parks on private land. And so essentially, if someone comes in with a proposal to build a house where you're gonna have a major arterial, we have the ability to deny that building permit or that lot split based on that official map. So it's not like your road map. It actually has a purpose to reserve right-of-ways for the future. And so at some point in the future, we'll probably spend more time on that. So what's changed? So before, the whole plan was used to apply consistency, like our current plan talks about in text, multifamily being located on collector roads in near commercial areas. And we have a future land use map where it identifies areas for multifamily. So you have text and you have the map that go together to determine consistency. But things have changed with the recent law. So now only the future land use map can be used to determine consistency. So it narrows that down. It also requires future land use categories in our land use map to be based on density, like 10 dwellings per acre or whatever category. And it has to have a development time frame in 5-year increments. So it talks about, so your future land use map will have to have an area like, let's say 4 homes per acre, years 2026 to 2031. And those areas can trigger a mandatory rezone, provided it meets, it's adjacent to other development and the city can provide sewer, water, those kinds of stuff. But there's this, our plan does not, currently, future land use map does not have the timing element or the density element, and that was adopted in 2021. So that's kind of what changed. There's other parts of the law regarding affordable housing. We can now do, and I'm very thankful for this for the state legislators, we can do residential TIF districts, provided it's for workforce housing. So a maximum house size, a single 1-story house size of 1,500 square feet, 2-story 2,000, and there's a minimum lot size for those things as well. The main thing, the major legal change is again, the consistency part. and the rest of the plan doesn't control zoning. It requires us to like clearly identify residential land use areas and have projections of residential area in need in the future, and for commercial as well. So it's just more detailed. Our plan was adopted in 2021. Doesn't meet the law. We have the ability to, we don't have to comply with the law until January 1, 2028. So one of the challenges is prioritizing this work along with all the other work we're doing in Columbus. We got a lot of projects in the hopper. So one of the options is, let's just update the land use chapter. Let's just do that. Let's do it piecemeal and just meet the law. The advantage to that is we have time to budget for it with the 2027 budget. And then also, it's a smaller project, so we're able to accomplish it in 2027. Lower cost, narrower scope. Option 2 is do a full comprehensive plan update. One consultant mentioned they could do it in probably 14, 15 months. It might cost upwards of $50,000. And we would likely need to begin this fall to kind of get that process going to meet that January 1, 2028 requirement. But again, it's like doing the whole planned update. And so right now, we don't have money budgeted. We'd have to find some money somewhere along the line to cover some of those costs that we have in 2026. And we have, again, prioritization. You know, what if we're going to be working on this, what are we not working on? And that's a legitimate challenge we have for committees and staff.
Does the state have grants for comp plan
No.
updates?
No.
They don't?
I wish they would have included that in this law that they passed. but-
Well, I don't know why I'm thinking, I could have swore I thought I remember hearing something about grants, small grants for doing comp
They
plans.
did when the law was first passed in the early 2000s, in that 2000, 2010 framework, that era. I worked on 14 comprehensive plans up north. And we had, it covered, I think, half or more than half of the project costs. But that money's not available today.
So as far as the legality of this, I know that the state requires it, obviously, because you can't apply for grants if you don't have a comprehensive plan. So, right, I mean, that's still the rule. You have to have.
Some grants refer to the comprehensive plan,
Okay.
like there's some, WIDA with an H, Wisconsin Housing
Yep.
Economic. They want a updated housing section.
Right.
Every 5 years. That's half the time the state law, to qualify for certain, loans. And we may have someone trying to utilize that loan fund. And so that 2026 would expire this year for that housing element. So there's it's important to have it updated because there's various grants that refer to the comprehensive plan.
Right, but when you say updated, you just mean to meet the standards of the legislation.
Meet the standards.
Yeah, okay.
And adopted at least once every 10 years.
And we could do that without paying the money for the consultant, correct?
I think that's to be determined.
Okay.
We would have to figure out what other work we would not do in that case.
Yeah, because I mean, $50,000, and that's a lot of money, and if it's not really gonna benefit the city financially by having, by spending the extra money, I would be hard pressed to agree to it.
I think I like your question. I mean, what if we do nothing? It sounds like we'll miss out on some grants.
Nope.
No, I think they
A
have to
developer
do.
could come in and say,
Yeah.
I want to rezone this, you're not complying, and then the rezoning is automatic
We have to.
Rezoning in the city.
adhere to
in the
state
city.
In
laws.
the city.
We have to do something. I'm just saying, what can we do to not have to spend the $50,000 if we're not gonna have any
And that's
kind of
why I have the
yeah.
options up here. Option one, just update the land use chapter. Option two, redo the whole thing. Because I wanted to have both options out there for you to consider. And ultimately here, I want you guys to make recommendations, city council, as a plan commission. You know, it kind of depends, you know, we adopted in 2021, so technically we should do a update in, by 2031. Some of this kind of determines is like, we haven't grown very much in
Right.
very many years. The question is, are we going to?
Right.
And do we want to get ahead of that?
Right, and we don't own the land across from the hospital, and in the current comp plan, that land is also was guessed at being residential, but what are we talking, 30 years? What's the likelihood of being able to make that area by the hospital actually residential? We don't own that property, and
It's designated as,
reserved agricultural,
Highway 73 Business Park.
the, across the street?
Yes.
I have to say, I prefer the option one in saving the city money. Things don't happen that quickly, and there's not a lot of land, I don't think there's a lot of development going on, partially because many of the individuals that own the land surrounding the city don't seem to want to move it out of agriculture. And you might know better than I do if there's other reasons, but
Yeah, again, it's, I wanted to throw out both options because it's, you know, we can meet the law change by just updating chapter.
I would be in
Land use
favor of
chapter.
that. We need money for things like roads and everything else in this town, and I'd rather not spend it on consultants.
And the other part of this is the whole prioritization of projects, and that's not an easy thing to figure out very quickly either, because we have a lot of different things that, in our strategic plan that we're supposed to be spending time on, and it just gets to be, there is limits to what we could take on as an organization.
What wouldn't be able to get done if we chose option one?
You have to go through that, you know, there's only so many hours in the day, so it's like, pick, do you want to spend time on business retention and expansion? Do you want to spend time on, code enforcement? Do you want to, you know?
Is option two very time consuming and we would have to set things aside? Or is the lift basically being done by the consultant and we can still do all the other things? Because $50,000 is not even gonna get us a sidewalk, you know, so.
Right. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying option one doesn't I'm not saying we're gonna do that as staff. I mean, it's, there's mapping
So
involved.
option one could still cost money.
Option one could still cost money, it's just not gonna be as much, and this law just came out, just got adopted this spring. Vanderwall's taking a look, and various people are trying to take a look at what this really means. At the very minimum, we're gonna need to adopt or amend the land use chapter. All of this stuff, you know, having a consultant is good, that it takes a lot of load off of us, but it also takes time for us, it doesn't manage itself.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
you-
And I'm reading this zoning code probably 3 times. It's not just left to them, because it has to have multiple eyes on it. I'm reading all this code at least 3 times, and we haven't even adopted it yet. So, you know, I think, you know, I wanted to bring both options because I want to get a sense of what you guys thought as a priority as far as where we are with growth, and where that is, and do we just do the minimum? I think it.
But we still don't know the dollar amount for the minimum. I think
No,
I'm
no, we
missing
don't.
information. I
Yeah.
need to know the level of effort of the city staff for 1 and 2, and I need to know how much 1 is gonna cost.
With option one, though, it's achievable by January 1 of '28, so I think what I'm hearing is you'd have time to budget for that
We
process
have time to budget.
and still achieve that goal.
And we would have time, all right, let's say if we're not gonna do it, hire a consultant. What would that process look like? What would the timeline look like? And what wouldn't we do from a staff perspective? What would we put on the back burner? It gives us time to do that, so.
I'd be hard pressed sending this to council with option one without even knowing how much it would cost.
Can you
And
bring that
same way with
back?
option two. That's just an estimate, right?
Well, you don't know what
Well,
the
at
real
least we
cost.
have a WAG on that one.
You don't know what the
I'd give
cost
you
is.
a
You're not gonna know what the cost is until you go and
do it.
actually
Yeah.
do a
have to do it.
RFQ or RFP. So that's the only way you really know.
Exactly.
Right,
But
but
if
if we have a, a WAG, wild ass guess, and one is 40,000 and two is 50,000, like I would like to know that.
Yeah, it's good. This just came out, we're learning the details, so, and I wanted to get this on the agenda to hear from you guys on kind of where you are on, because figuring this all out does take time. But, I mean, I personally I like option one, do it just because we have so many things going on to take on. I mean, if we would start this fall with a complete updated comp plan, the zoning code thing isn't even finished yet. And I'm just sitting there going.
That's my other thought, is to not jump into
Yeah.
that
I
kind
mean-
of project until this one's done.
Yeah, I mean, that makes my stomach
Throw another
turn
pile.
doing that, and that's why I prefer, even not knowing the cost or if staff's doing that, I prefer option one, because this zoning rewrite is a big project, and it'd be nice to kind of at least have a little bit of space, and not having to.
Well, you
be-
said it was approved in 21, right?
Yes,
So 20 or 31 would be your next
10-year
full.
update, yeah.
So it wouldn't pay to do it now. You could get by with option one.
Well,
Lower cost potentially.
The reason you do it now is, one, you have to meet the new state law, and two, if you perceive we're gonna have growth challenges and you wanna get ahead of it, that's why you do it now.
Well, so I'm saying do option one, take a year to do it maybe, and then start planning for 2031 or 29 to have it done by 31.
And we also, we're trying to do a specific downtown, plan as well, so there's a lot of planning going on out there, and our downtown is kind of a priority, what I've heard from council. And if we were gonna do a comp plan update, that would probably be something that, okay, here's another thing, so it's like, and having a downtown plan, can probably have bigger impact for us going forward than a whole new updated comp plan, in my view.
Well, and I think we're getting into a transition phase, right? We have new houses going up on the Dingy property, and, it looks like there's some movement over on Tower Drive, and, so we're in a transition phase, and so I think it would behoove us to kind of see what happens. You do what we need to get it done, to meet the law and the expectation of the state, but then,
And
in
if you
another
don't
5
wanna
years.
make a recommendation to the council, that's fine, I think that's feedback for me and for Matt, how you wanna proceed. That means a lot, that helps, gives us that, hey, we're on the same page here, and we can kind of work through the budget process on how exactly we're gonna.
Right, but Molly's right too, we really should, there's always a cost associated with everything, whether it's the cost of you guys or, consultant.
Time or money, you know?
So what I'm hearing is we're not gonna make a recommendation tonight. We're probably going to request more information on option
Yeah.
one, option two.
Or you guys take it to budget time.
Yeah,
and-
it'll be linked.
Yeah.
You know,
Because you
we'll-
don't need council to.
No, but I just
us to
want.
do that now.
I wanted to,
Get a feel for the room.
and if you guys
Okay.
wanted to update the whole thing, then we definitely would need to council, one, to get money, and two, to
Right.
get the process
But
going.
it sounds like everybody's
Yeah.
on one.
Yeah.
I think we
I-
get one project done.
Yeah.
What we know, I
Yeah.
would say, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I-
so I think like internally, you can, keep digging into one, but I wouldn't say we're at the point to take a recommendation to council yet.
I don't
And
believe
I've been spending a little bit of time, we got some updated GIS stuff, and, been updating the existing land use map, in the city as well as the extraterritorial area, and that's some stuff that, hey, just like, oh, I'm sick of working on one thing, I got a half hour to do some mapping and that kind of thing, so I think that, we kind of working on some things to set that up, and it makes, it's it's less heartburn on my end, so I appreciate that option.
All right, so we're through 5. I think we took 6 and moved it off till next meeting.
What agenda are you on? Because you just did 6.
Sorry, I got the one that was posted, that was sent out to us, and now. this is-
Future, meetings, Tuesday is the joint,
Wait, we haven't talked about 7.
okay.
Consider and take action on the.
It kinda, the two.
It's the same.
Yeah, 6 and 7.
One was the presentation on understanding the law, and the second one
Okay.
was,
I was like, wait a minute, those are the same once I read it. Okay, never
the
mind.
one was actually specific, what option do you wanna pursue?
So we're through 6 and 7.
Yep.
We're not making any recommendation to council. Number 8, I've got future agenda items and reminders. Joint Plan Commission, City Council Workshop is May 19th at 5:15.
That's Tuesday. So, what we're gonna do, I don't know if Uriah's gonna be back, does anyone know?
He should be.
Okay. So I'll send him a extra email reminding him, tomorrow. So we'll have, Sonia will be here, and, the whole idea is to have you guys communicate with council, kind of the direction things are going. Sonia will have a short presentation, and then try to get the council and you guys, talking about, stuff like, the historic preservation in downtown, that process. Is that kind of in the more flexible regulations and all this stuff we talked about, signs,
So aligning,
setbacks,
so when
height.
we send a recommendation on the zoning code to council, it's pretty much aligned, we're already aligned.
Yeah.
Okay.
You never want to wait for a public hearing. We want to bring council along, make sure you guys are in line. You guys want to be able to send something to council that is likely to pass. And, along the way, we had public comments on the agenda tonight, as part of the agenda. Since we're kind of getting in that home stretch, I would like to have that on every plan commission. So if the public wants to come in and make a comment, hey, I looked at the project website, what's going on here, they can make their comments. That every plan commission meeting here on out, there'll be that opportunity for the public to speak. And then also we'll be getting, after Tuesday, David and I will be getting out, more frequent, communications on social media, to make the public aware of things. So we don't want, it's hard for the public to get interested in something like this until they see the zoning map, the new zoning map. But we don't want this to be a surprise. We want to kind of, get that out there some more. So we'll have more regular social media posts, and then,
With or without comments?
without, that's the city policy. If they want to provide comments, they can send them to me, they can send them to their council representative, they can.
And you're gonna put that in the little blurb, that if you wanna make comments, please reach out to blah, blah,
Yep.
blah.
Yeah, and we'll say plan
I
commission.
know, because it's easy, it takes effort to give you guys an email, and then they probably have a legitimate gripe, otherwise, you don't wanna.
And we also have like don't we have like a complaint form or whatever? There's all kinds of way people can communicate, and, all of them take effort.
Well, complaining on Facebook does not.
That still takes effort.
We have
It's
all
less
comments,
effort.
we have all comments turned off on any city posting, so
We do the best
we don't read those and take those into
Yeah.
consideration, so it is still effort, yeah.
Yeah, I do get metrics when it's shared and it's commented third party, so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I share your posts occasionally, when there's.
Yeah, but council doesn't take that into consideration. I mean, maybe you guys do for like stats and stuff like that, but like, you don't go and watch other people's posts
No.
Not
and,
normally.
and bring it to us.
No,
No.
it's just analytics saying that S. Albright shared this post, and she has 3
Yep.
impressions.
Yeah, because originally there was concern about like, people wouldn't be interacting with the content if we turned comments off, and that hasn't been impacted at all.
It just goes other places.
Yep.
Right.
So, but you'll see more reach out from staff to the public after Tuesday, because we'll have a better feel of where the council is with the work you've done so far. But the big part, we'll also take a look at, we got the zoning map coming forward. We'll start looking at when potentially the public hearing is going to be. I would like to have another joint plan commission city council workshop prior to the public hearing, so we have another kind of, are we on the same page? This is just one of the key parts of getting this project to the finish line, is having you in concert with the city council.
I can't make it next Tuesday.
That's all right.
Put in your comments. Well, they don't look at those.
So, all right.
All right, I will look to a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A second.
Third?
We got a Finkler, we got a Albright, we got a Kajewski. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? We are adjourned.